There is strategic church planting, which I'm all about. The strategy, the numbers, I'm all about that. But then there's relationship church planting. And this has been a story of the latter.
Doug, from the very beginning of our church planting journey, became a mentor and just took us under his wing and allowed us to get a glimpse of Radiant's story and what a church plant actually looked like in real life. Like, there's things you learn in the classroom that you're like, got it. But the internship at Radiant was the lab where you realize, oh, this is how this stuff actually gets worked out in real life, and it's not as neat and tidy as like what you heard in a 5-point lecture on that. And so by the time we got to the south side of Indy here, we at least felt like we had a realistic picture of the work that this was going to take and what that work actually looked like. We had a church in our corner who was like, hey, there's going to be some really hard parts of this, but oh, by the way, like, we're here with you.
A pastor with a pastor, a church with a church, sharing our life, cheering them on. That's raising disciples. That's what's supposed to happen.
I remember my dad throughout my life saying often, Brock, you never totally feel ready. Brock, you never totally feel ready to go to college. You might not totally feel ready to get married. You never probably feel totally ready to be a parent. But there's a call that the Lord has, and you walk by faith. And the gaps we see that we think we're lacking in, we're gonna trust that you're gonna step in and fill those gaps. And we have seen him do it again and again and again.
The thought came into our minds of what would it look like to actually have the small group ministry be the conduit in which church planting could actually occur. One thing led to another, and Brock says, I don't know how we're gonna do that, but let's try and let's see what happens. So I went into that with guns ablazing, just doing everything I could to instill a culture of multiplication. 3 years went by, and there was a cluster of people living in Franklin Township, which is about a 12 to 15-minute drive from where Redeemer was located. And so I gathered them together and said, what would it look like to have a church like Redeemer in Franklin Township? And then the wheels started turning fast. When you're launching a church, you don't have elders. And so the elders of the sending church became not just brothers in the trenches with me, but people who were actively watching my own soul in the process, keeping an eye on my heart in the midst of a very uncertain time with COVID. The benefit that came out of that was, unqualifiable. You can't even quantify that particular benefit. So relationships, I would say, is the key factor.
Radiant, by God's grace, was able to be involved with planting Redeemer and then Redeemer Doxa and so on and so forth. And really, I've gotten to benefit from how that's now coming around full circle. I've got these men personally to lean into, to ask questions, to be encouraged by, to pray for, to be prayed for, to encourage back, and all that through faithfulness to say, let's plant churches. Let's see the gospel go forward. Let's raise up men. Let's pour into them. And now I'm getting to reap eternal benefit in this role by God's grace because of how those relationships have gone. So that's been a big deal.
If God has called you to plant the church, we are seeing that he is faithful to bring planters into our midst. And we need to be good stewards before the Lord to pour and raise them up and send them out for the work God's called them to.